Cloud Customer Success Team office hours. This week, we just came off of some big announcements at reInvent, and I thought we'd kind of go over some discussion and some of the stuff that was announced there. We have, I'm Matt Vanderbilt of vCloud Matt. Have Z House with me here and Paige Clapper. Z, you want to give an introduction to yourself?
Hey Matt, Z House, as Matt said, VM A to Z. If you guys are into that Twitter stuff, work with Matt doing all things VMware Cloud and AWS and DR as a service type stuff.
Paige, you want to give a little blurb?
Yeah, I don't have a Twitter.
Well, you
Not trying to
do,
make me one.
technically. I signed you up for one, but
Uh, but it's not in use, no tweets. I am a architect for app defense specifically.
so we did a session last week on App Defense Platinum. If anybody wants to check that out, it was a very good session, something that's new and very hot topic, which I think quickly got replaced as a hot topic as this AWS stuff. So the biggest announcement,
Yes, stuff.
yeah, stuff. Now I was as surprised as everybody, and maybe I'm just out of the loop, but I was really kind of taken aback by the Outpost announcement when Pat was up on stage with Andy Jassy, and I said, "Whoa, all right, I didn't know." So I think really kind of for the discussion, I want to break it into a couple parts. So I'm not a massive. I guess I don't really care so much about the Amazon getting into the hardware business part of it. I think that's just kind of another VAR in my mind. I think we talked about this earlier, Z, and it's kind of like a V block in kind of your thoughts.
Yeah.
I was surprised that Amazon wanted to get into the hardware game. I guess they buy enough hardware anyway; they might as well sell some. But I don't know. I guess I was just kind of surprised by that. What were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, like you said when we were just talking one on one about it, to me it sounds very much like VCE and a V block. Probably going to get yelled at for that, but if you're not familiar with V blocks, it's stuff that was built in the factory. It would come out pre-configured. Um, Depending on your level of service that you wanted, I mean, it could be completely hands off. If you needed a new volume off of your storage, you'd call them up and they would log in and provision it for you. Something happened. It was obviously on Cisco hardware with different varying degrees of backend storage. So you would just call VCE and it just the I don't care for the term, but the quote unquote one throat to choke um, for the infrastructure. So you'd call them up and do it. I mean, it sounds we're still in the infancies of understanding what Outpost is going to be and entail, but at least on the surface, to me, that's exactly what it sounds like. So
And
um,
HP had something similar, the converged infrastructure.
yeah,
Yeah, NetApp did as well, and they still do. As far as I know, I haven't kind of been part of the hardware game for a very long time.
yeah.
Um, but yeah,
It's kind of interesting because they marketed it as a cloud solution, but Amazon really is the major cloud provider. So this could be something super
It's
cool.
it's what everything that's old is new again. So like you said, Matt, kind of shocked. I mean, I was out of the loop as well. I think most of us were when it came out. Um,
yeah.
but
I mean, I guess, like I said, like I kind of said, I guess they kind of make enough hardware anyway. They might as well, you know. And I mean, I think Amazon is always one to make money wherever they can.
Well, and I think it'll be interesting, like you said. So I mean, Cisco, VCE is all kind of had a hand in it. HP, NetApp, and that's just off of kind of the quote unquote commodity hardware, right? So HP, uh, whatever manufacturer it is, but Amazon specs it also. It's the ODM or original design manufacturer. So I think it'd be interesting to see. I mean, it's not going to be anything groundbreaking um, from like a hardware perspective. It's still going to be Intel processors or AMD processors and stuff like that. But
So I
I think
think I think one of the perhaps the synergies here though is this is the same hardware that's running all of their
yeah,
workloads in the cloud.
yeah,
So, I mean, you don't have to worry about any, incompatibilities or anything in that regard, which, I think is, I guess, advantageous to people that have kind of bought all into uh, either AWS services or VMware Cloud services on AWS. So I think, and some of the feedback I saw on Reddit as well was, I think it depends completely on how much they're going to charge for this.
Yeah.
If it's cost competitive, I could see it really being an interesting offering that some people want to pick up. But if it's kind of a premium, I don't know how many people will kind of jump on it.
Well, but that's so on the ODM or the original design manufacturer stuff. There's a couple articles I read. It's probably 2 or 3 years ago now about like Facebook and Amazon and Google and the hardware that they quote unquote make. But it just has the stuff that they require on it. So the one example that they had in the article I remember was like the ILOs or the DRAX, right? Amazon doesn't do that because just at the scale, there's just no way to. There's just no purpose for it. So I think definitely it would be from a cost competitive standpoint. I think it'd be interesting to see and also what it does to the other old kids on the block that have been producing all the hardware to see what kind of innovations it spurs on their side.
That's true. No, to me, the other very interesting part of this was Amazon's going to support this, which to me kind of blew my mind a little bit. That you can pay for Amazon to come in and set this up for you.
Well, the guy's going to deliver your Prime delivery, and he's going to replace your hard drive, and then he'll be back.
The drone's going to deliver a rack for you.
Yeah.
But I mean, because to me, getting into the hardware business is one thing. Selling hardware is selling hardware. But to have the resources behind it to be able to do the actual deploy work and repair work is not a light endeavor.
Oh no.
And I have to think that Amazon doesn't really get into anything without a lot of planning and knowing what they're doing. So to me, that's just interesting that you log on to your Prime account and say I need a hard drive replacement. I don't know how that's going to work, but it's definitely something that's a little game changing. Now to me, this also really is. Along with the other Outpost announcements that we'll get into around some of the EC2 stuff, but to me it really signifies that AWS has now fully realized that not everybody's going to go everything to public cloud. I don't think there's a more clear indication of them kind of saying, okay, we wanted everybody to move to the public cloud and we made a lot of money there, but okay, there's a lot of workloads we're just never going to get if we're public only. And we saw the first iteration of that. We announced at VMworld with moving RDS onto on-premises. And now, like the second part of the announcement, which to me is a much more exciting one, is the running of Amazon native services in your on-prem data center. Which I think that's a very cool thing, and my understanding of it so far, and I'd like to your impressions as well, is it sounds like that's only going to be supported on this Amazon hardware running the VMware stack in the data center. You can't just buy, like we said, a vBlock and run the EC2 services on premise.
Yeah, I mean that would premise this on prem. It's the only way I can do it. Otherwise, I get confused in my head. Anyway, I mean, I would assume they would have to. I mean, I think it's still too early to know for sure, but I mean, it just makes sense. I don't know. I mean, if they allowed it to run on a vBlock, which doesn't exist anymore, or HP hardware, something like that. I mean, I think that would be even a bigger blow to the other manufacturers. Yeah. So maybe, who knows?
Yeah, and in all transparency to anybody watching this live on Twitch or on the YouTube recording, is our team is still figuring out our piece to play in the on-prem side of it. We have a compatriot group within customer success that looks after VMware Cloud Foundation, the VCF piece that is mentioned here in this picture, as well as being the deployment piece. So I think that ultimately, I think we're going to have some involvement in this as well. Uh, where those lines are, I mean, we're talking like what is? I think they said this is going to be available mid 2019,
Yeah.
kind of thing. So I think a lot of those pieces are being figured out. But to me, it's really kind of a departure for both AWS and for VMware a little bit as well. Is that I kind of get that we manage the VMware cloud stack on AWS. We manage that hardware, we look after it, we can control it, all those kinds of things. But now we're also going to be supporting this because it's essentially just in some regards an extension of the VMware cloud offering we have right now. So the portal, there's been some mock-ups of the portal. I'm not sure if it's on this page. Um, I think it's right here where you can see all of the, yeah, where you can see all of the SDDC locations. So you'll be able to access this all via the VMware Cloud portal and be able to pay for us to support this for you, which I think is a really, trying to find the right word here, brave, but not really brave, very interesting stretch for us from an organization to move into kind of the managed services game.
Yeah.
And not to say that we're not capable of it or good at it. It's just it's just an interesting change in framework and where VMware's going as part of we're really getting into the services side of delivering and I would assume this is kind of a SaaS type model for this. I don't know how we'll handle the billing of it when you own the hardware, which I think will be kind of an interesting.
Well, I think that's still kind of up in the air too. Is some of the questions I've seen is it do you own it or is it a lease type thing? So I think that it was at least the one piece that I saw. I think it was just all OpEx. So yeah, what interests me is how they're going to do it, right? So not so much building the hardware, getting the cage to your data center and hooking it up and stuff like that, but how when you log into your AWS portal and you say, hey, I want an EC2 instance and I want to deploy it in uh, US ZAZ, right? Whatever. I'm assuming you're going to give it a name or something like that, and it's going to come up in the dropdown. And how is that? Is there going to be like a local repro or repo where all those images are going to come down? I can't imagine, since it would probably be pretty large. But is it going to require a direct connect? Just how. I don't know. Things that interest me are always like, it's not so much the what, but the how exactly is it going to happen, and what is that going to look like? So I think it'd be pretty interesting. So not only delivering an EC2 instance is, I would think, fairly easy, or at least easier than delivering VMC in your data center.
And you'll be able to have app defense now too. I don't
Yeah.
know if you guys caught that.
No, so maybe you can go into a little bit of detail on that page. I think maybe we.
Yeah, so if you're going to run the VMware Cloud on AWS on-prem with the Outpost infrastructure, you can have app defense when you do that. And Andy Jassy and Pat mentioned that in their keynote.
Well, that's excellent. I mean, is that the fully functioning one, not the quote unquote on-prem?
The SaaS version. I'm not sure that you'd be able to get the offline version, just because, if you're going to run VMC already, you probably don't need the fully offline version.
Yeah, I guess this is a really kind of big change for your average administrator running a data center now. That you go to a portal to manage your infrastructure as opposed to, like you said, Z, with DRAC or ILO or whatever have you, to kind of and I think when I was an administrator anyway, I would have loved something like this to get out of the weeds of managing all these pieces of hardware kind of thing. And
well, that was always the kind of the goal or the dream, right, that VMware kind of provided. So I've been doing it since ESX2 in late 2003 days, and it was like, oh, you get this set up, and really the only time you ever have to go in the data center and rack and stack and cable anything was when you needed to add a host. But other than that, you just do it all from your desk. and I think we've kind of struggled a little bit for the last 15 years on kind of realizing that utopia, if you will. But like you said, you log into a portal, you click a button, and assuming whatever happens in the background, however that rack gets there and however it gets connected and cabled. But yeah, I mean, not having to replace hard drives or troubleshoot things, I think be very very interesting to see. It's not just going to be kind of been shifting away from the siloed. I'm a storage admin, I provision volumes. I'm a network admin, I configure network ports type stuff. I think the lines have been blurred now for a little while, and I think this is going to continue to make those lines even more difficult to identify.
Yeah, like I said, I would have been excited by this, and I guess again, a lot of it boils down to the cost again, and how much the services will cost. But managing data centers is a big thing. I mean, that's why we're having such a success with VMware Cloud on AWS right now, and to be able to have that same feel and utility on prem is to me, like I said, I was very taken aback by it, and I thought this is a really cool thing and a really good idea. And now we're just kind of hammering out all the details. One of the things I'm curious about too is, now that you can run your EC2 workloads, are we going to offer the same kind of fluidity, you think, with the EC2 workloads that we do with our VM structure, where you'll be able to seamlessly migrate EC2 back and forth from on-prem to cloud? I think that would be an interesting take on things as well.
But see, I mean, now you're getting really crazy, because you can't even do that today in AWS. Can't. There's no mobility. It's all got to be built into the application layer, unless I'm wrong, which I'm okay with, but I'm pretty sure you can't, right?
No, as far as I know, you can't. But I mean, and you're right. That would be kind of a paradigm here. And I don't want to. Again, this is just us talking. This is not. Yeah. I don't have any secret information that this is going to happen, but. We're going to be able to, so they're going to be leveraging the one of the big things that I kind of like to highlight as well is, while we say VMware Cloud is kind of VCF based, I wouldn't call VMware Cloud VCF right now. It's a little bit different. It's VCF in the terms of we use the same building blocks of vSphere, vSAN, and NSX. But now that you take kind of that stack, you put it on prem, you stretch those networks. I mean, I guess it depends on the level of access that we can get to migrate stuff to the. I don't know if that would work, but or if you could run EC2 workloads on VMware Cloud on AWS. I wonder if you could do that.
Well, I think it was with 6.7 update 1. If it wasn't the on-prem, I know for sure, and it may be out of there now, but when you logging into my environment to take a look, when you went to create a new VM, there was actually an Amazon Linux option when you selected Linux. So
interesting. Yeah, I mean that would be kind of an interesting thing, and I know we're talking a lot about EC2, but there's going to be other services that are going to be available with this. And I'm not sure if I'm relying on our compatriot William Lamb's blog here, who apparently had a lot more insight into this than we did. We should probably bring him on one week to chat about it, because I'm curious as to all of the services, because I know that they mentioned a few. EC2 was one. RDS has already been announced. But yeah, we'll have to take a look here. Oh yeah, here you go, Paige. Application security using App Defense.
Woohoo!
Yeah, if you're not busy enough now, good luck to you. But now, another thing I kind of wanted to kind of facetiously bring up a little bit too is I feel like Amazon has somewhat of a better naming department than we do. Like I kind of like the Outpost name. I mean, I think people will make some verbiages to Outhouse, but it's a very well thought out. Well, not well thought, but it's an interesting name, and I think it applies to the service where we always just kind of call everything VMware something.
V something.
Yeah, V something or SX something.
Yeah, our colleague Michael's not with us, but no, he hit the nail on the head. He's like, every time that he reads Outpost, he reads Outcast, like the band. which was ironic because I had been listening to a lot of Outcast the last couple of weeks. So I thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah, sorry, Miss Jackson. I was surprised Paige didn't.
Oh, so see, yep. So
Yeah,
you guys, if you're running 6.7 update 1 Virtual Center on-prem, go through to create a new VM, select Linux, and the very tippity top of your drop-down list is going to be Amazon Linux 2. So it's not even a VMC thing, and maybe it's not supposed to be there, but if you're running 6.7 update 1, it's there.
well, that's interesting. So that's yeah, maybe that's the sign of some things to come. Definitely. No, I do think that we really have. I mean, it seems to me that we're very much all in with our AWS partnership now, which I think is kind of exciting, and I think that now. I mean, the stock market obviously loves a lot of the announcements we made as well. Uh, but it seems like a lot of our futures are kind of tied together now with and I think that this is kind of what we're seeing now is the Amazon part of that partnership where we had the first part where we ran our stuff in their environment, and now we're seeing them coming into our backyard, which has raised some concern. And I don't know if you guys have been watching the Slack channel and some internal talking about are we worried that Amazon's going to take over our on premises uh, you know market.
I don't know that I don't know about takeover. Yeah, I saw some of that. I joked like 15 years ago that Google was going to take over the world, and they're getting pretty close. And maybe at one point, Amazon will, HP will go away, and IBM will go away, and Dell will go away. Um, I mean, that's a long ways out. I mean, I think you're always going to have other hardware vendors, no matter what. I mean, no matter how big, whether it's Amazon or Google or somebody else that encroaches into a space. Um, I mean, I think it'd be pretty difficult to be the only the only option out there, um, at least in my lifetime, anyway.
Yeah, and I mean so that was kind of one of my initial thoughts when this hardware part was announced was IBM and to some degrees HP and stuff have actually been trying to get out of the hardware game because it's a kind of a very low margin business, and I suppose that AWS is using this as a means to an end of getting their services delivered on premises as opposed to the hardware is not really what they're trying to make money off of. It's all the services on top of it, which I think is what the IBMs and stuff in the world are trying to get into as well. Is that's where the money is made is in the services part.
Yep.
But yeah, it's I honestly am not too worried. I think that that from a VM perspective, if you're running virtual machines, VMware to me is still the game in town, and I think that EC2 was kind of viewed as how you did that in the cloud, and I think I really don't personally think that that's going to affect. We might lose some market share a little bit, I guess. I mean, we're not really losing market share because it's running on our stack still, but the number of virtual machines that are VMware virtual machines versus EC2 may dip a little bit, but I still think that there's just different use cases for it. I don't think that anybody actually goes to Amazon because EC2 is a better virtual machine.
It's a different platform stack, right? It's a different way that things are put together. So the platform 2 versus platform 3, right? So platform 2 is kind of the infrastructure or the on-prem, where the resiliency is built into your infrastructure, and platform 3 is where the infrastructure is not resilient, which is not just EC2 but other cloud offerings, and the resiliency is built into the application. So some companies, a lot of the new companies, the Facebooks, the Googles, and stuffs like that, they started from scratch and they wrote their own applications, so they just built that resiliency into the app. So that, I mean, taking that and putting it on prem is just as bad of a fit as trying to take, I don't think anybody runs their own exchange anymore, but just as bad of a fit as trying to take your exchange server and shoving it into EC2. on a non-resilient infrastructure. So that's
Yeah,
my take on it, and it's it's funny because like that the platform 2, platform 3, it comes up and then it goes away, and then it comes up and then it goes away. I haven't heard it mentioned in a while, but that's, I mean, it's a pretty easy, to me, it's a pretty easy question. Where should my infrastructure go? Should I put it in Amazon native, or should I run it in VMC or in something on-prem?
yeah,
What
no,
does your
no,
application look like?
yeah, I agree 100%. I think that, yeah, like I said, you don't pick EC2 just because that's the virtual machine format you wanted. It was more of the AWS ecosystem around it, and the way of developing your applications, and EC2 just happened to be the medium on which you deployed. Now, where I think that this has a massive potential is all those customers that wanted all those AWS tool sets but were reticent to put stuff in the public cloud.
Yeah.
So I think that there is going to be at least a very big look by agencies that have a lot of compliances and regulations and security mandates, that now you can get all those tools, like you said, and design your applications and using these AWS integrated services, but you have that on prem. It's not sitting in somebody else's data center, which I think is a really big thing when you kind of think of it in that regard.
Well, and I mean, and so I totally agree, having it in the physical location and having the physical security, but I also think depending on what the remote management of that looks like, um, I'm pretty sure the government has VBlocks, but they don't have the remote management of it. So it'd be just interesting, wow, to see, um, what they can do, right? So does it have to be, at the most, does it have to be connected to the internet, type of a thing, or can it be an isolated island that, to some extent you have maybe not full control over, but that you have the majority, kind of like the cloud admin type access that we have in VMC. um, if something like that exists, where you can, and then you can just have have somebody that comes on site to do upgrades, anything, maintenance, stuff like that. If that's allowed, I think that would be pretty big.
Yeah, I think that's an extremely valid point, and it's something that, again, we don't know, or we just kind of announced this, and we're very early stages. But yes, if you need to reach out to the internet, as it were, to manage this, that would change that paradigm significantly. So it's an interesting world. Like I said, I was surprised by it. Now, switching gears a little bit too, we can talk a little bit about the VMware cloud stuff. So we're pushing out our M5 P2 patches here very shortly, which offers vSAN encryption, which I know that's something that people were keen to get, as well as some NSXT fixes, and our i3 Metal, which is I don't want to say better host, but uh,
It's
different.
generally available, right? It's ultimately the same hardware. You can think of it like a BIOS update.
Yeah, and that's going to be happening here over the next month or so. So all of our existing customers will be upgraded in place, which is another nice thing of the VMware Cloud stack, is the customers don't need to actually do anything. We handle all of those upgrades, and we'll roll through all the hardware and get you up to the next version. And then we're looking at our milestone 6 here is coming up in January, which has some other stuff on the roadmap that you can view on our roadmap page. And so things are definitely rolling along on our side. It'd be interesting to see how, we talked about that maintenance stuff and the patching, about how we could handle the patching on the on-premises side. I mean, it's a different beast because we can't really add a host per se to maintain that.
But and I was, when we were talking earlier, I was thinking about it, and then I squirreled. But what, let's say you order, think about it kind of like the container. I don't remember if it was Amazon or Google or Microsoft, but it's literally just a whole container full of hardware. Let's say that they bought, quote unquote, 1,000 servers, but maybe there's 1,500 servers actually in it. So when they just get cycled out, one fails, they pull it out, they replace it with another one, kind of like your SSD, right? So you have a terabyte SSD, but there's probably 2 terabytes worth of NAND on that SSD. So not sectors, but when uh, on a blank on what it actually is, but when that
Like a
section
block.
goes bad, when the block goes bad, it gets copied or moved to another one. So let's say you buy an 8 node, whatever it's going to be, an Outpost. Maybe there's actually 16 in it, so that just maybe there's some kind of automation that flips that and moves that workload. And for on the VMC Outpost side, um, we'll just make use of that, right? Add that additional host during maintenance periods, and go. But like you said, it's all speculation at this point. We were caught off guard, so don't please don't hold us to anything that we're saying here.
Yeah, I should really put a disclaimer page up somewhere. This is just some banter, as it will. So we actually have a question in chat. Well, there we go, from Will, who's one of our compatriots over the pond. He's asking, how would that work with the external stuff, though, like plugging in and networking to an existing DC? That's a very good point. We're going on the notion, and the design is that all of this is going to run with NSX on top of it. So, yeah, how that plugs into, I guess it'd almost be similar to how VMware Cloud does it now, where you'd kind of have to, do some peering on our edges around the T0s to communicate to your local networks.
Yeah, but I mean, so that's going to be the logical stuff. So from the physical side, so if you're not familiar with a VBlock, you said his name is Will. So there was a lot of work that went into how that connected, right? So sometimes it could be the FEXs out of the UCS chassis, 3Ks, 5Ks, 7 or 9Ks at the top, and then those that would all be meshed together, and then you would have from the 7 or 9Ks, you would have say two 10 gig, 240 gig interfaces per switch connected into your core network. So just thinking logically, I mean, it's not going to be like a NAS device, right, where you just you plug your data center in with one gigabit or 10 gig network connection. I think there's going to have to be depending on the size of it, right, it'll scale. So if you have a 4 node, maybe you can get away with 2 10 gig connections into your core network. But if you have, say, a 40 node, right, you're going to, I'm sure there's going to be recommendations around what that connectivity into your infrastructure looks like. And again, just basing off of what I'd done with VBlocks in the past, I mean, there's gonna have to be something similar to that, right? And that's just into your core network, and then I think kind of what you're talking about, Matt, is on the logical side, how does that connect back into AWS or into VMC or anything else?
Yeah, no, and I think that's a valid point that Will brings up, and that you bring up, is that there's going to have to be some requirements here. Like this requires X amount of power, Y amount of cooling, Z amount of network capacity.
Whoa! There's no Z amount of network capacity. That's
it was actually a little bit painful for me to say Z in that context. I'm still the Canadian Z is still in there. But yeah, there's definitely this is not just potentially a plug and play kind of thing. There's going to be some thought that has to go into this around it. Now, what I'm really curious about is it going to be as flashy as a VBlock? Is there going to be a nice glowing Amazon logo on the front and nice decal along the side that because I mean, as much grief as we gave kind of VCE back in the day for that stuff, I'd actually had customers that bought that because the CTO went around one day and went, "Oh, that looks fancy."
Oh, they were coveted. The VMAX and the Symmetrics face plates when I worked at EMC, like oh, anything that went into the lab, oh, are you gonna take that? I mean, everybody had one on their desk. So yep.
Yeah, and then do you get a free Prime account with this? I mean that that would be corporate Prime. I don't even know if that exists, but yeah, I'd be interested to see if they have an AWS. I guess there'd be an AWS store of some variety too, where you can, go in and click and say, I want X amount of servers and stuff. And now knowing AWS, and I think this is probably, pretty white box type servers. I don't think when these guys put it into their data centers, they give any kind of thought to how it looks. But just one of the kind of those funny thoughts that I had, because yes, I remember when I used to set up some of the NetApp. I can't remember what they called them now. The NetApp's converged infrastructure, FlexPod
Yep.
is what it's called.
Yep.
I remember thinking when I put it together. I mean, all I needed to do was include some LEDs, and they could have been in the game, but it was very plain looking compared, and you know. And I think we've all been to those data centers or those offices where they have the glass walls and all the fancy stuff. So, maybe we'll put that idea in for flashy AWS blinking
Well, and that's
logo.
that's part of the ODM stuff. So, and also if you guys are interested and if you haven't read those articles, I know there's a couple of them that it was at least 2 or 3 years ago. But if just Google, ironically, Google original design manufacturer, and I think there's a couple articles that came up about it, and that's part of the way of savings, right? So instead of having a fan that says move you know 3000 CFM because of the faceplate, the faceplate on the server, the pretty blinky lights and stuff like that you're just talking about, Matt. You remove the faceplate, and so maybe that 3000 CFM fan takes, I'm just making up numbers, 10 watts of power, but you can do a 1500 CFM fan that uses half that, without the faceplate on it. So you're getting the same amount of cooling, if not better, with less power, and also you don't have the cost of that pretty little bezel and blinky lights on it. So, yeah, I think it'd be definitely
So
interesting to see what they do with that.
yeah, like I said, it's just a mere point of curiosity to see how this looks. Um, which again, I think the majority of people will never actually see how it actually looks at a data center, and it's fairly irrelevant. It's actually perhaps hindering from a performance or optimization standpoint, but it's definitely something that a lot of people notice. So now along the lines of Google, there have been some announcements around Google Cloud. Diane Green, who is our ex CEO, is now going to be the ex CEO of Google Cloud. I think that's happening in January.
Miss Green signed my first VCP.
Oh, really? There you
Yeah.
go. Oh, maybe she did mine too. I'd have to try to dig it up. Um, but the idea behind it is well, there's some of the not the idea behind it, but some of the momentum behind it was related to the Google is having what seems to be an extremely hard problem getting into the enterprise side of cloud. I think a lot of that is due to the fact that Google Cloud is really built towards the developer type of consumer, and I think they're seeing AWS and they watched Azure fly right by them for business and market share, and I think that they're looking to start really making a push into the enterprise space. I think is kind of one of the impetuses, but behind that move. So I'd be kind of curious to see where Google goes with this, and I mean they got to be reeling a little bit from all of these announcements with VMware and Amazon that they're getting a little bit further behind.
Yep.
And I mean, well, like I said, we'll be interested to see it. It's I kind of feel a little bit for Diane. She's kind of been put in some tough positions, and I'm sure she'll find a way somewhere. But now I'd be curious as to see, and I don't really know, but what Microsoft's reaction to this kind of stuff is. I'm sure that they position their Azure stack on-prem as, I guess, essentially the same thing as this.
Well, talking about that, what also got kind of swept away a little bit is the ARM stuff. Is anybody excited about the new ARM instance types from AWS, and kind of coincidentally ESX ARM? Nobody. I think it's really interesting. There was and also if you guys I'm probably one of the only oddballs that uses Google Finance versus Yahoo Finance, but there was an article yesterday about um, a Pi compute board for clustering. So I think that'll be. I think ARM is going to be super interesting. Do you remember, Matt, back in the day when NT4 and you had it wasn't Spark, but
Yeah, the compact one.
yeah, you had
I'm
the
sure someone
different
knows this. Yeah, the
the
Alpha. Alpha?
Alpha. There you go.
Yeah.
The different architectures where you could actually run your NT4 on either x86 or Alpha, and I feel like there was another one too. Um, but there's already the Windows 10 IoT for Raspberry Pi, so at least some of the infrastructures there, the coding to be able to do that. So
Well, that was one of the announcements that Amazon made this last week as well. Is an ARM based server
mhm,
to run workloads for cost saving.
yeah,
Uh,
the A1 instance types.
yeah, and I know that we've been looking at that for a while as well. And I made the joke to you guys. I think it was last week, or I've made the joke several times. But I'm fully convinced in my life that I'm at the end of my career. I'm going to be putting one app on one physical server again at some
Oh
point.
yeah,
And ARM kind of plays a little bit, along with that, where you can have, I think HP had something similar to this called Moonshot or something like that, where it was
yeah.
a server with just like 100 ARM devices.
The Moonshot was actually based on Atom processors on Intel Atom, so it was still x86, but there were smaller, slower, just single socket. Ironically, that's what my current personal lab is built on, is on some 8-core Atoms. Um, but yeah, no, when you said that, I took it one step further, and it's going to come full circle at some point. Amazon's going to have an S390 offering in AWS for your mainframe. I'm a total firm believer. What's old is new, and
We actually bring up mainframe. We actually have some customers that I'm working with that are moving mainframe applications to Linux emulators on VMware Cloud. So we're still thankfully in the days of migrating off of mainframe, but we still run into mainframe a lot,
yeah,
especially with some older uh, applications. And usually in certain industries like a lot of the SCADA stuff. SCADA has its own hardware, but financial institutions or government, or there's a lot that transportation that have these old
yeah.
systems that have been around for forever that nobody wants to touch and
Start of my career, I worked for a shipping company, and um, we had a mainframe. We had an S390 for the main shipping and tracking application, and an AS400 for the import export stuff. So yeah, I remember that was part of my duties on Tuesday or on Saturdays was to back up and kick off the. It wasn't an IPL on the AS400, but it's ultimately a reboot. I remember what it was. It was a long time ago. But
yeah, no, that's funny. And no, and I do think that and we've made this joke 1,000 times about hybrid cloud. But I do think that, especially with these kinds of announcements, that we actually are now, I think, really in the world where hybrid cloud is a thing. And that's why I think that there's a lot of advantages of I think there's advantages anyway of getting off of like those old application types like mainframe and stuff, because once you get into this virtualized world, the future is there for you. I remember I worked for a transport company as well long ago, and we had this old NT4 domain controller that was like running on a Dell desktop kind of thing. It was like the first server that was ever put into place at this company, and uh, I was the brave guy that virtualized it, because, and this is back in the day when you actually had to reboot the thing and put the CD in the drive and boot
P2V
the old converter. I think it was actually not even
is
called converter back in those days. It was
it's
P2V
just
assistant or something.
P2V, VMware
Yeah,
P2V.
and but once we got it there, all of a sudden we felt 1,000 times better about things because now no longer did I have to worry about that power supply kicking out or whatever. And to me, it's funny that we're still running into those kinds of things all over the place. But now you can not just have it, virtualized. Now it can move between data centers. It can go to the public cloud. It can come back. It's really, it's a fantastic world to kind of be in, again, from an administrator standpoint, where I no longer have to, be tied to stuck in this data center and I can't move it.
Yep.
And a lot of that has become with a lot of the NSX stuff that we do. And going back to some of the VMware Cloud stuff, so NSXT is becoming more of a thing on VMware Cloud. It's definitely got some advantages. So one of the other things that was announced was the Transit Gateway. Now, a little reticent to talk about it because we don't currently support the Transit Gateway, but I know that support is coming.
Well, not natively. I mean, we can still support it, but just with VPN.
Yeah, not natively, like which, like I said, I think we're working on it. And to me, that was kind of a cool announcement as well, which really, again, facilitates a lot of this hybrid type conversation. And I know a lot of that is particular to AWS, where you had this transit VPC topology before, which we have a few customers on, and we know of many more. But that's complicated. Like getting that transit VPC stuff to operate is no small task and requires constant kind of care and feeding, especially when you add new VPCs. Whereas this transit gateway, you just kind of throw in there and peer it up and away you go. And I don't know, maybe you could probably talk in more detail about what that is, as you're a lot more on the networking side than I am. But I think it's definitely going to have to. It's definitely going to be something that opens up a lot of doors, especially for our existing AWS customers leveraging VMware Cloud.
Yeah.
So I think I've kind of talked myself out here. Is there any other topics anybody kind of watching on Twitch wants to discuss, or anything, Z, that you wanted to bring up, or?
No, let's see. We hit a little bit on the ARM stuff. We hit a little bit on, well, I guess a lot bit on the Outposts, Transit Gateway there at the end. There was a lot, between reInvent and then a couple weeks before that with VMworld Barcelona. There was too many. I don't know. At least for me, anyway. There's too many things to keep track of. But I think those are the big ones. And even then, I'm sure we still missed at least one.
Yeah, and server knows if you want to, and I'll have to get William to give me some kickback. But if you do go to his actual blog site, which is his blog site again? I'm blanking on it.
Virtually Ghetto.
Virtually Ghetto. Thank you. There was quite a VMware presence at AWS this year. Again, there's a lot of sessions which are now available. Recorded sessions that you can watch to see some of these, and I actually thought it was really cool that Amazon or AWS streamed the whole week on Twitch. So they had their keynotes live on Twitch. They had their sessions in between. They had kind of panels and customers coming in and discuss. To me, I thought it was great because I could make the cool parts of AWS without having to deal with 30,000 people in a confined space. So the platform is definitely something that's interesting, and we're trying to grow it on our side as well. But to me, it was great to watch that stuff. It was great to see Pat up on stage with Andy Jassy. It was there were like lots and lots of cool content and sessions out there. I highly recommend people check out. Also, you can check out the VMware VMworld sessions are also available now, I believe, on our YouTube channels.
Yeah,
and such too. If you couldn't make it in person. But yeah, you're right. It's been a whirlwind of I think it's a constant whirlwind in the business we're in now. But definitely coming back from VMworld Barcelona, we kind of had a week, and then now reInvent, lots of announcements, lots of customers ask us questions. This Outpost thing has definitely become a very, very hot topic. with people who want to do it, and hopefully, our discussion is answered some questions for people that are wanting some information about it, and we'll continue to have more and more information as we kind of flesh this out. And I think that our group, I think, will have a definite role in some facility around the Outpost stuff, which I'm a little excited for. I think it's it's cool. It's a little bit of a change perhaps in thinking, but I think that our customer success team is very good at enabling customers to be successful and stuff. And I don't know if that sounds redundant, but I do truly believe that. Maybe I've drank too much of the Kool-Aid, but I got to admit I love my job, and I love helping our customers and getting them on and getting them successful on the platform. We've seen a lot of customers. We're still growing and growing and growing. We keep signing deals and putting more and more hosts and more features. And yeah, this is just another thing on the pile that to kind of to learn and to have to ramp up on, which is a very exciting on one hand and very daunting on the other. But it's it's exciting times, I think, for VMware, and I love how the stock market reacted as well. And I think it's been a really interesting month, and I don't think it'll stop either. Unfortunately, well, I don't know if that's unfortunately it won't stop, but it won't stop. It's too bad that Paige left, because I would have made a nice Drake nonstop reference that she may have enjoyed.
Paige left us.
Yeah,
we were too boring.
And we're continuing to offer more and more SaaS services as well. And there's a lot of I think Cloud Health was up on stage at reInvent as well. Maybe they weren't up on stage, but I do remember watching part of the Twitch stream where they had a lot of the Cloud Health team there. Also, our Green Grass product, if anybody is familiar with that, but it's an edge device. It's an infrastructure as code type kind of device aimed at the edge kind of thing. So we definitely had our presences there. There's lots and lots and lots and lots of content for people to try to consume. I'm going to try to catch up on some of the stuff that was put out there in the infinite amount of time that I have available. I don't need sleep, so
yeah.
But I think I don't have any much more on my side. I don't know if there's any. I don't see any more questions out there. Just Will reminiscing of his AS400 days, because that seems like forever ago, but it probably wasn't that long ago, actually.
Yeah, when I left the shipping company in 2007 when I came to VMware. I started there in 2001, so it's a good 17 years ago for me. I know they're still around. I know they were around long before that as well. So
I guess that's forever in IT terms.
Yeah, it does seem like it.
Yeah, it's. But then again, I remember in the early 2000s running into an OS2 box in a server, so no one knew what to do with that. But anyway, I think we'll wind it up here. I think we beat up these topics sufficiently. Next week, we are still trying to figure out the schedule for next week, because there's some. I will not be able to host next week, so I think we're going to have Dustin that's going to host it, and we're going to have Aidan Dalgleish, another member of our team, talk about the connectivity, and actually very timely, I suppose, is the connectivity between VMware Cloud and the AWS services. So we do offer that E&I link between the two, but it's not like that just kind of comes out of the box. It's there together, but there's some security group considerations and a bunch of other stuff around actually leveraging those services. So he's going to go over, some of the architectures and demo a little bit about what the pieces you need to do to actually get those to work and how you can, fully leverage that, which I think is going to become even more of a thing now as we have this now on-prem as well as in VMware Cloud. So that's going to be next week. Timing is still is still a little bit up in the air. We're going to try to keep it close to regular time, which is going to be this time next week. And so look forward to that. I'm looking forward to that. Like I said, I might not be able to host it, but I will definitely consume that afterwards via YouTube. And then we're probably going to I think we'll have one more office hours after that. Then we're going to break for Christmas and then kick back up full swing in January. We have a lot of interest coming out in the APJ part of the world because we have 2 data centers going out that way. I know Melanie was in here briefly. I didn't want to call her out, but she just came back from Tokyo, ramping up our team there.
I'll be going out there first part of January as well.
Well, I hate you, bastard. Anyway, that's the one place I haven't been that I really want to go on the work junket. But so we're probably maybe going to have some stuff particular to the APJ side of things, which will apply to everything. But maybe aim a little bit of focus. We'd like to have some partners come in and talk as well. So we're going to fully continue this office hours and our regular webinars and try to get as much information out there for everybody to consume and hope everybody enjoys it. Let us know. And again, we do have now an email address that I should actually put up on the stream, cscloud@vmware.com. for any kind of suggestions for topics or questions that you have after you've watched this in a recording that you couldn't ask live. Hit that email address and we can answer that stuff for you. We do monitor that email address and like I said, we want to be as interactive as possible and really be responsive and give you guys the information you need. As you can tell, I and Z and the rest of our team we don't hold back. We kind of give our honest impressions. We're not in sales, we don't make any commission or anything. So we are really more concerned on people consuming it without issue than we are, I guess, towing the marketing line per se. Not that our marketing's that far out of line, but we're definitely more realistic for what we can do and how we think that everybody should get stuff together. I think maybe in January I'd like to do. We hummed and hawed about this term. We didn't want to call it best practices because I don't particularly like that term, and I can't remember what we had come up with. Design recommendations or something along those lines. So I talked a little bit about this a couple weeks ago about some of the the stuff that's we're coming up, to get you guys as successful as possible, new cluster size limitations and recommendations for those kind of things. So maybe we'll do that a little bit in the new year of, really going into detail about, what our recommendations are for customers to kind of, prevent people from getting in trouble. So, and to get the most out of the service. So with that, again, I'd like to thank everybody for making it out. Really, big thanks to Z for coming out and bantering with me and Paige for the short time she was here. And I'd like to big thanks to Will for the participation out in Twitchland, and I look forward to seeing everybody next week. Thanks a lot. Have a good one.
Yep. Thanks, Matt. Bye.